U.S. economy has gone the longest in our history without a problem, starting in 2009. Maybe it's going to go on forever, Anthony. I'm skeptical. It never has. Now, Washington says, don't worry, we've solved all the problems. Well, I know they haven't. They never have. But I don't have many investments right now because I can see whatever's happening all over the world. Stock markets are doing well. And when everybody's having fun, it usually leads to something bad. So I mainly don't have many shares right now.
On this episode of the What the Finance podcast, I have the pleasure of welcoming on Jim Rogers. So Jim is a legend in the investing world. He's also an author, a financial commentator, and more. After attending Yale and Oxford University, he co-founded the Quantum Fund, a global investment partnership. And yeah, Jim, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today.
Well, Anthony, I'm delighted to be here. Yes, but whatever you said nice about me, remember, I make a lot of mistakes.
I think it's realizing that you make those mistakes, but no, appreciate your time. So my first question is I like to start very broad. So what is your current outlook on what we're seeing in the economy at the moment?
I presume you mean the U.S. economy?
I think that's what most people look at. I guess we can
Okay.
start with the US and then potentially go global after wherever you want to take
Well,
it.
I am an American citizen. I happen to live in Singapore for what that's worth, but I am an American citizen and investor. Well, U.S. economy has gone the longest in our history without a problem, starting in 2009. Maybe it's going to go on forever, Anthony. I'm skeptical. It never has. Now, Washington says, don't worry, we've solved all the problems. Well, I know they haven't. They never have. But I don't have many investments right now because I can see whatever's happening all over the world. Stock markets are doing well. And when everybody's having fun, it usually leads to something bad. So I mainly don't have many shares right now.
Okay, makes sense. And why do you think things could potentially go bad? Is it just as you said, there's so much euphoria, we haven't seen a recession? Is there anything else that you're looking at as well?
Well, mainly because everything has been doing well for so long, and that has never happened in history. But Anthony, if you look around the world, the Japanese stock market was down for 35 years. That's not a typo. The Japanese stock market is now going through the roof. They're having a wonderful time everywhere. Most countries in the world have not been having a good time for a long time, but now everybody seems to be having wonderful times. Even China has started doing well, and they had lots of problems. So maybe it's different now. Maybe things are going to be okay forever, but I'm skeptical just because I've been experienced enough to know that it always ends badly.
Yeah, there's never a time where it just keeps going up forever. There's always that cyclical bust. But yeah, I'd love to hear how I guess maybe the markets have changed over your career. Have you seen a lot of change since you started investing?
Well, we all have electronics now. I'm sitting here talking to you on a laptop, which would not have been possible 50 years ago. Uh, there were stock markets, yes, but they were very limited around the world. Yes, there was NASDAQ. Yes, there was the New York Stock Exchange, but there wasn't a whole lot more than that. If you wanted to invest, you could, but a lot of it was on paper. Now we have electronics, now we have computers, we have laptops, we have anything now. If I want to go on my computer and invest in Germany, it's pretty easy right now. Whereas before, that would have been almost impossible, except with a lot of aggravation. So electronics has changed everything for investors all over the world. It's certainly made it much easier to invest anywhere we want to now, which was very difficult long ago. So we can invest wherever we want to. We can lose money anywhere. So it's very easy for me to find a place to lose money now. I don't have investments in many countries except China and Uzbekistan now, but that doesn't mean I won't continue looking.
Yeah, it's a great point. The globalization of markets. You don't have to go to the country to actually invest. You can now do it from wherever you're sitting.
Well, I am in Singapore. Singapore has, remarkable communications with everybody. Most countries do now. That doesn't mean you're going to be right. I still make mistakes. It just gives me more opportunities to make mistakes.
Yep, and hopefully being right now and again, which is the main thing. So I guess if we look at the US again, the Fed have started to cut rates because it seems like they think you know unemployment has been rising. They see inflation coming down. Do you think that's the trajectory that they'll continue to go, or do you have any thoughts on whether inflation could come back?
Well, no, I am sure inflation will come back. It's throughout history. Inflation has had ups and downs, and then corrections. I suspect that's what's happening again. We have, we, the US, have printed huge amounts of money in the last several months, but most other countries have too. And as you well know, throughout history, when there's a lot of money printing, it eventually leads to inflation. I suspect it's coming, it's just a temporary correction right now. I am not selling short. I hasten to tell you quickly, I am not selling short yet.
And what would you need to see to maybe decide to sell short?
I guess I'd watch your program. You tell me when to sell short and what to sell short. No, when I start selling short, I mean, in the US, it's pretty easy. There are 7 or 8 or 10 shares that go up every day. They're very overpriced. Traditionally, when you turn to the short side, those are the kinds of places where you start because they're very exploited, they're very expensive, and everybody believes it. I have learned enough to know that when everybody believes in something, you better start asking questions.
Yeah, good point. And I think do you have any thoughts on the Trump election and him, obviously becoming the next president, what impact that could have on the economy and I guess market sentiments, or do you think it's, all the same?
Well, Trump did win the election. We know that. I doubt if he will be as bad as Harris would have been. Who knows? I don't. We will never know. But whatever he wants to do now, he will do. He's got Congress completely, and it doesn't matter if he has crazy ideas or brilliant ideas. He's going to do them now. And that's one reason, if you ask me, that the US stock market is going up, is because everybody is confident. They know there's not no much resistance at the moment. And Mr. Trump certainly talks a good game. Most politicians talk a good game. So maybe we're going to have happy days for a while. I'm not sure how long it will last because I repeat, we have never had such a long period in American history without a problem. Never. And maybe we'll never have problems. Hooray.
Yeah, I think what we've seen in the past is when people say we won't have recession, cycles are over, is normally the times when those recessions come through. So I think we have to be careful with the people who say
Well,
those
we've all
things.
lived long enough to see happy days forever with no problems. Hooray.
Yeah, we seem to forget those massive drawdowns. Um, from your perspective, how do you deal with timing of investments? Is it more just you're patient, you take your time, you look for the trends to come through? Is there any other strategy that you personally have?
Well, I've never been very good at market timing. My main, if I've had any successes in life, it's finding things that are cheap, with not a lot of exploitation, and then hopefully finding something changing for the better, and then investing. I don't see much of that right now anywhere in the world because nearly everything is making new highs. As I said, the Japanese market's been down for 35 years. 35 years now it's making new highs. So everybody seems to be joining in. China's joining in. China's been down for a while. Everybody's having a good time. So if the world has changed, I am making a mistake by not having investments, I should be piling into everything, but at the moment, I am skeptical, maybe because I've seen it before, but I am skeptical and not piling in. I'm looking, but I don't see anything that really touches my fancy.
Okay, I guess why are you still in China and Uzbekistan? You think they're just sort of severely undervalued plays, or?
Well, Uzbekistan was taken over by the Soviets and they ruined it. But now there's a new government in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has vast resources, and the new government is trying to run the government the way you and I would run the government. So if that, and the market's very cheap, because most people couldn't find Uzbekistan on a map. So that's why I've started investing there. China is one of the largest economies in the world. It's been depressed for a variety of reasons. Now the Chinese government is trying to revitalize things in China. And if they can do it, which they're trying to do, then the Chinese market will revive and be good for a while. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm just telling you my theory.
Yeah, so it's as you said, a lot of the companies seem to be so undervalued, but I think some investors are concerned about going in because the potential for increasing tariffs. I think some of the largest companies as well had experienced antitrust.
Unfortunately, Washington has said they're going to impose tariffs. Tariffs have never been good for anybody, including the country that imposes the tariffs. But it looks like Mr. Trump is determined to do that. So it looks like we will have tariffs. And that may be another reason that the bull market will be coming to an end. To repeat, tariffs and trade restrictions have never been good for anybody, usually not even the people who impose them. So maybe that will be one of the catalysts to end the bull market.
Okay, but then and I guess that would be negative for everyone as well as the Chinese companies and the US companies and probably everywhere else globally if you put up all these barriers.
Well, history is pretty clear. When you start having trade wars, you have problems. Who knows? Maybe it's different this time. I doubt it.
Yeah, it's not not normally many times where it's different to the past. But if we look at, so I think a lot of people say, why has the market in the US kept going up? It's because of this fiscal spend, this fiscal deficit, constantly pushing money into the economy from the government. Do you see the current debt trajectory? Is there a possibility for them to reduce the debt through, or even just slow down the rate of acceleration, or are you sort of skeptical about that?
Well, I know that Washington says they're going to solve the problem. They're going to reduce the debt. I've heard Washington say that all my life, and everything I've ever read, they always say that. They never seem to do it. It always seems that when they start doing things like that, people say, oh my gosh, we didn't know it was going to be this much pain. Stop, stop. And then the politicians change their mind and a lot of easy money comes again. Maybe that will happen again this time. But as I say, the deficit is going higher and higher every day, not just in the US, everywhere in the world. Everybody thinks things are great. And maybe it's different this time, but throughout history, that has been a sign that problems are coming.
And do you think it could go the way of the 1970s with sort of this extremely high inflation, or is it
Well,
uncertain?
this is certainly, and in the 70s, America was still a creditor nation. We made mistakes, but at least we were a creditor nation, which could help us. Yes, it certainly will probably happen again. We're now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debts are going higher every day. Washington continues to print a lot of money. So yes, I would expect, in my view, inflation is not gone. I'm sure it's still coming and coming back, if it's not back already. Always has, and I suspect it will again. But Washington says I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're trying to keep it all together. But I did hear an interesting take on this, that even though the US is a debtor nation, it's mainly importing goods from US companies that are in China and Mexico and these sort of large exporting countries. So do you think there is a chance that if they were to somehow bring that manufacturing back to the US or somewhere else, it could go into a surplus, or you think that's very unlikely?
Well, I know it's a great theory, but I do know that the U.S. is a high-cost nation. Yes, there's some industries that we're still very competitive, but for the most part, we're a high-cost place to do business. If you look at Vietnam, China, other places, they're not such high-cost places to do business. So, but maybe Washington's right. Maybe everything is okay now. But I do know that the U.S. is a high-cost place to do business compared to some of the others in the world.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard unless they somehow print very cheap robots. It's I think it's going to be hard to compete against these countries. But if we look at this current trajectory of the US economy, the debt, the growing inequalities, there's all these challenges. Do you think this is sort of the time where countries have started to diversify and will continue to diversify away from the US dollar? So I know BRICS have talked about their own payment solution, and there's other factors as well. So do you see this trend sort of continuing in away from the US, or what do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I do know that the U.S., Washington is pushing people away from the U.S. dollar, wrongly, if you ask me. We should continue to try to open up our economy and our currency. The U.S. dollar has been going strong recently, partly because people see that Washington is trying to make it stronger. I have to repeat myself. That usually doesn't work. Strong economies are good for countries unless they get too strong. And I'm afraid that might happen to the US because most other countries in the world are not pushing for strong economies right now, strong currencies right now. We, the US, are the main one. But again, Anthony, let me say, maybe Washington's right. Maybe everything is going to change and be great now. Maybe all economic theory, all economic practice for the past 100 years has been wrong.
I think you, and probably our audience as well are very skeptical about whether whether the government is correct these days. But yeah, as you said,
Well,
it's just waiting and seeing.
I mean, we're all very keen on the US and we all want the US to make sure we continue to get it right. But trade restrictions, trade wars, currency restrictions have never been good for anybody.
But I guess it does seem like a lot of people say it's the best. Currently it's the best economy because they've been able to remain strong. They haven't had as much weakness as sort of Europe and China and other countries as well. Do you sort of buy into that, or you think it's maybe just a short-term facade?
Well, I want to repeat that nearly everybody is now doing well. Stock markets around the world are making new highs just about everywhere. And okay, I hope that the world has changed, that now everybody can make a lot of money every week. I'm just skeptical because it's been going on so long. Many of the signs we've seen before, a lot of new people are coming into the US market. They're talking about how much fun it is, how easy it is to make money in the US stock market now. All of these things historically have been danger signals. And I repeat that the US market has been going up for the longest in American history. We've never had such a long period of expansion and good times. Maybe I'm just too foolish to understand that it's different now.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but yeah, it's hard to see. I guess you don't know what the catalyst is until it happens. So then that's what we're sort of all waiting to see. When is that catalyst? When is the right time for people who own assets to sell? And I think with what you were talking about before about the increasing technology, it means that these seems like these crashes occur a lot quicker, or these movements are a lot more violent because it sort of spreads globally throughout the world very quickly.
Well, Anthony, what we all have to do is watch your show and get the answers. You have to save us.
I don't know. A lot of people have, you know, been very similar to yourself. I think for good reasons that this is it's unsustainable. We've seen this in the past. Things have gone wrong. You know, uh, these accelerations can't last forever. But then I guess you know the stock market has continued to go up. So I think it seems like this time. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and he was saying that COVID has really skewed, I guess, the business cycle and the economy for different reasons. So I wonder if maybe that's why we've seen this extended bull market compared to maybe what we've seen in the past and what people like yourself and other commentators have been thinking.
Well, perhaps, yes, but again, I don't know any country, any market, any economy that's having serious problems right now. And again, maybe it's different this time. Maybe Washington and London and Tokyo and everybody has solved the problems. Hooray, that would be great. Make your life more difficult. You got to tell us what's going on. And if you just tell us every day everything is great, somebody eventually is going to be skeptical, starting with me.
Yeah, agreed. So if we look at, the US seem to be wanting to continue to escalate conflict with Russia. They've recently announced that they're happy for Ukraine to use their long range missiles into Russia. Are you concerned about a growing global geopolitical escalation, or do you have any thoughts on what's currently happening there
Well,
and potentially China as well?
I'm extremely concerned about Ukraine and Russia. You know, for the past 10 or 15 years, the US has been hitting Russia in the face, starting in Ukraine and telling the Russians, get away, leave us alone. The Russians said repeatedly that you cannot join NATO, Ukraine cannot join NATO because that will be an act of war. They're right on our border. Washington kept slapping them in the face and said, we don't care what you say. Now, I know all wars are foolish, but especially this one would be foolish. But for some reason, Washington kept slapping them in the face. I don't know if Putin has any brains or not, but eventually he kept telling him, you got to stop. They didn't stop, so he invaded. Now, is that good? Of course, it's not good for anybody. Has it happened? Yes, it has happened. And Russia's not pulling out, not yet. And the problem, at least from our point of view, that's the hard place for us to go to war, since it's far, far, far away from the US and it's very close to Russia. We're very close to Russia.
Yeah, and I think everyone's concerned about the potential escalation to nuclear uh, obliteration,
Well,
basically.
of course, and if the Russians drop something nuclear, not going to affect them as much as it is their neighbors. And then what do? We're going to start dropping nuclear bombs far, far away from the US. I mean, I hope that somebody in Washington has enough sense to end this. Now, Mr. Trump keeps insisting that he can stop this war, end this war quickly. We will find out. I don't know what his plan is. I don't know if he knows what his plan is, but I hope he can do it. We all need it.
Yeah, let's just hope that they neocons don't increase the current trajectory before Trump gets in, and hopefully they don't take control of his government as well. That's the concerning part. So I wonder. So from your perspective, once we see this sort of bear crash, do you have a plan on how you would then invest, or is it mainly just, I'd be interested to hear your investment strategy. Is it just looking at those really, as you said, cheap valuations with a good catalyst or reason to buy in? How would you look at stocks at that point?
Well, what I historically have done is try to find out what is down the most. I try to buy low and sell high. I try to start with the things that are down, which have been hurt the most, to see if there's an opportunity there. That's where I'll start. Who knows where I'll wind up?
Okay.
I
And then
mean,
I
you
guess
look
that's the
at
same
something
for,
like the
yep, sorry.
Japan, you look at something like the Japanese market. I own Japanese shares. I bought them well, but they've gone to all-time highs. So I've sold. I mean, I sold too soon, obviously. Uh, and if you look around the world, there are many markets that are doing well. And again, I don't see in many things or anything that is cheap. I don't see many depressed investments anywhere in the world right now.
Yeah, which is crazy to think. So, Jim, thank you so much for your time today and your patience earlier. We had some technical issues, but we got there in the end. But my last question is, what is one message you like people to take away from our conversation?
Well, since I did most of the talking, what I see is that most markets in the world are expensive. So if I were a potential investor, I would try to find things that are depressed or at least down before I would start investing. But somebody is buying, so somebody disagrees with me. But if I were listening to this conversation, I would say, well, wait a minute, what is depressed? And I would try to find those sectors, those countries, those markets.
Great message. So,
Just
Jim,
an
yep.
aside, a quick aside, agriculture is certainly more depressed than electronics in most of the world. So that might be a place to start.
Okay, interesting. So, land in general, or mainly just the agricultural production of, yeah, the
Well,
goods
there
and
are
whatnot.
many ways to invest in agriculture, fertilizer, seeds, tractors, many things, or just farms. There are many big farming enterprises in the world. So there are many ways to start looking. But again, don't look just because somebody said it on the internet. Find a real reason to invest. And agriculture is historically cheap. That does not mean it's going to go up.
Great message, and thanks for that. Yeah, that gem at the end. But Jim, thank you so much. If anyone wanted to follow you or find out more about your work, where would the best places for that be?
Well, Anthony, I don't have anything to sell. I don't manage money for anybody. I don't publish any newsletters or anything. So I'm afraid I'm pretty useless. They can listen to me talking to you or some people like you, but I don't have anything to sell.
So
Too simple-minded.
I think it's a refreshing, refreshing thing where we can just have discussions without those, as you said, those ulterior motives. But I'll put a few of your other videos in the description. I think you have a website as well. So, Jim, thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciate it.
My pleasure, Anthony. Well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening. I really appreciate the support. If you've got value out of this, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, or comment. Good or bad feedback. I'm always open to that. But it really helps with the channel. As I said before, only about 14% of people actually subscribe to this channel. So if you were to that, it would really help. It could mean we could continue to grow. If not, thanks for watching and see you on the next show. And you also might like this video right here. All right, thanks again.